if you're investing.
Investors will.
The podcast for all things real estate investing.
Welcome back to another episode of Investor One-on-One. Today's guest proves you don't need to have it all figured out to build real estate wealth. After 13 years in healthcare and serving military families, she saw the same pattern. Hardworking people never learn how to make their money work for them. That changed when she moved to Utah mid-COVID, living in a hotel with her son, and took a leap into real estate. Within just 7 months, she hit her family's 3-year financial goal. Now she helps others do the same, raising capital for secured real estate deals so investors can passively build wealth without managing every detail. She's also VP of Elevate Côte d'Ivoire, a nonprofit creating jobs and education across Africa. So please welcome to the show, Harmonie Borden.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's so good having you on. But yeah, just tell us a little bit more about yourself. And before real estate, you spent over a decade in healthcare and working with military families. Can you tell us
Yeah.
more about what you do today?
Yeah, and I want to be clear. A lot of people say they leave their W-2s because they were miserable and things like that. I did the medical field for 10, and then the last 13, I was a case manager in a caseworker within the military. I was contracted and I managed the state, and I loved what I did. That was probably the best fitting job anybody would see me in. My husband would always tease me, "You're just Miss Aloha. You don't like, how do you get up?" I get up every day and go to work, no problem. It was fun and I was very passionate about it and I love the people I worked with. Getting into real estate was more my husband's push. We've always liked different aspects of real estate, never realized we were investing at the time. We just kind of did what worked for us. And so once we moved here and I was going to attempt to go back to work at the military, I just was like, you know what? I need to start learning this. We had already purchased multiple homes, and I was always sadly that wife who just signed the papers. I'm like, my husband has this. And I never really wanted to learn the nuances of the contracts and how the purchase and anything. I knew how to find a short sale, and to me, in my mind, that was a clearance deal. And just sign the papers because I trusted my husband with the numbers. And he would always tell me, you need to learn this. What if I'm not here tomorrow? What if something happens to me? You need to understand these things. And I was never big on budgeting and all of that. I handled everything else. But being here during COVID, being stuck in a small hotel room with, my son who was 12, only doing online schooling, looking for a home, I had a lot of time on my hands. And so I was like, you know what? Let me take some online classes. So I did. And I quickly discovered how I can turn this and help others. So, in a sense, I can still do what I'm doing, helping others, which I've always been passionate about. That's just who I am. But to be able to help them in a way before I would ever get them in my previous career, right? Casework, I usually get them when they're having some kind of struggle. So, to be able to touch people before that and help them through and navigate before they hit the trouble, that was an eye opener. And then not just one community. Now I can do it with multiple communities.
That's awesome. You have such an inspiring story, and I love these kind of stories. So you moved to Utah mid-COVID, you lived in a hotel with your son, and you still jumped into real estate, which can be scary for a lot of people. What was going through your mind when you said yes to your first deal? And I know we spoke a little bit about Utah and how it's becoming a huge market for investors. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's attracting these investors?
Yeah, well, I think during COVID, when we decided to look into moving here prior to that, COVID really was a bigger reason for us too, because the numbers here worked as far as everything shut down. In Hawaii, we were shut down for months. I didn't see my husband. You couldn't go out and do things. I flew in here mid-COVID and I was the only one wearing a mask. People were looking at me weird. Why are you wearing a mask? They did not let it slow them down. I believe Utah and Idaho were just so productive economically, business-wise, and they're very big on entrepreneurs here in Utah. So it's very supportive. It feels supportive no matter what you're doing. Um, During that time, the market was crazy. Everybody was trying to move away from their states that were giving them a lot of restrictions. So when you get here, I was making offers and you had to go 100,000 and more above appraisal. So it was crazy. You're signing disclosures to say, yes, I'm willing to pay way more than this house is actually worth.
Wow.
And it took a while. It took that 4 months. I was actively looking. My poor agent, she had another full-time job. She's also from Maui, and I took her all over. We went through 3 different counties all the way up, and we would spend hours and hours looking at homes. I've probably seen over 100 homes during that time and multiple offers. So that was another big thing is I had her doing all of this and I'm like, I need to understand this more. And I just kept diving in and diving in. So when we decided to look for our first deal, we got here and we thought we're gonna do fix and flips and buy and holds. That was our initial thought. And I already knew I didn't want to do fix and flips. I like doing projects when I have the itch for it, not because I'm going to do it full time. My husband likes working with his hands as well, but I quickly knew I didn't want to do fix and flips. But this is what we were going to do. So we had our numbers, we sat down, went through it all, and our first deal that we purchased was a for sale by owner. She was retiring and she wanted to move. So I had made multiple calls to her. Finally, she invited us to her home. We sat in the living room and I we just wanted to hear from her what her goals were. And we were able to come up with a win-win deal where she was able to accomplish those goals and we got the house priced where we wanted it and we did a burr with it, right? We did some upgrading to it and turned around, refinanced and did really well on it. Today, I don't want to do buy and holds. I don't enjoy being a landlord. We do still have some properties, but our properties here in Utah are all under seller financing. And that's the way to go, right? We also love encouraging home ownership. So those who can't get traditional loans, we're happy to help them navigate that with seller financing.
That's awesome. And you hit your 3-year financial goal in just 7 months.
Mhm.
What specific actions or decisions allowed you to accelerate that quickly?
Honestly, probably the biggest thing that, and we're big on it, we say it a lot, is diversifying. Like that was just, it's huge for us. When we left our W-2s, we didn't know exactly what we were going to do. And we could have retired and been done. But one, we're too young and we didn't want to just be home doing nothing yet. And I mean, life will catch up to you too. So we just decided to diversify and quickly discovered lending debt deals, on homes. And it's a comfortable way to be, every investment everything has risk, right? But to find a way to invest where you're secured. And, my husband is also a licensed contractor. I'm also an agent. So it made sense. So for active side, that was really big. On top of all of that, being very diverse. We were still doing our buy and holds. My husband's big in the equities market. We have our stocks, all of that. It was a combination of all of it, being able to be able to just get out there and do more because we're both full-time concentrating on it at this point.
Let's talk a little bit more about your investing strategies. You started by lending on deals.
Mhm.
Why debt investing, and how do you evaluate whether a deal is safe and worth funding?
Yeah, well, debt investing, like I said, it does feel more comfortable because there's not a lot of investments that you can do that you actually, if anything goes wrong, you can take possession of it. And here in Utah, that's a non-disclosure state. You also want to look at the different states as far as the laws on whether it's a judiciary state or not. So if you're doing any kind of rentals or things like that, how to get the process done quicker to get a bad tenant out, things like that. So being able to navigate the lending side, and it was a very hot market, it made sense. Deals are short, 6 months here. We're looking at a market that if they do a flip, they're doing that within 3 months, and then the next 3 months is looking at the sale typically. Some of them do it faster. So it made sense. As far as looking at the market, we're very conservative at the same time. We like to align with anyone we do business with, and being able to talk to these borrowers and go through the process with them. And we're really big on looking at each market month over month. How are they doing? Because if somebody is being unrealistic because they went and did their comps, but they're outside of your 1 mile, it's not a like property. There's a lot of different factors that we're looking at and looking at that market's growth. What is that looking like month over month? And sometimes they'll come back and say, oh, we got this ARV and it's looking great. But our data is showing us that it's actually dropping 1% month over month. So by the time this project is completed. And we show that to them. We give them, we don't just say no, we're working with them, showing them because we want it to be a win-win. We never want to have to take possession of a property. So that's really big for us. And just understanding the market is going to be huge.
Talking about understanding the market, what's your thoughts about the future of this market and what mistakes are you seeing investors making when it comes to placing capital in real estate deals and how can they avoid them?
Yeah, there's a lot there. The market definitely slowed down. So we've seen a lot of people lose really big. And it basically broke a lot of them. 'Cause it'll make or break you. And one of the things I kept hearing in this is you're gonna see all of the ones that were just kind of in it for the ride now gone because they're not understanding exactly how they should be doing it. There's a lot of people out there who are just kind of doing deals left and right and not protecting themselves. That was a really big issue we've seen. Understanding the legal side, how to structure a deal and protect their lenders. A lot of private money was out there and lost. And all of those aspects, we see people doing it a lot because during this time, at the same time, you're seeing it all over social media and everywhere, right? It's just being fantasized, and people are like, oh, I can do this. It's kind of like a get rich quick thing. And don't get me wrong, some did. They were doing great in the wholesaling and flipping. But the longevity of it, the biggest problem we seen was they weren't diversifying. They were doing all of their eggs were in one basket. And then when they lost it all. So that is definitely really big for us to help others understand diversifying. I just had a call the other day with an investor. He says, I never realized we weren't diverse until I started to watch some of your stuff, which I'm glad it's working. Um, he says we do equities market, we have stocks, everything like that. We have our retirement, but they weren't being more diverse and understanding where they're at in life. That's the other big thing. People just kind of run for it because they see a good deal in front of them or they're hearing from somebody it's a good deal and this is a great thing to invest in. But understanding what their risk factors are, that is really big because they go and do it because someone else did it in the moment and they're not understanding what they're investing in. They're not understanding where they should be investing in that moment in their life. Everybody's journey looks different, but let me tell you, I'm not going to be as risky as a 20-year-old can be today at my age. I shouldn't be, right? Unless I have endless supply of money, then I can do whatever I want. Other than that, I think people were just trying to get on that magic carpet ride for a little bit.
Well said. I couldn't agree more. Diversification is key for the people who, kind of do want to get into this industry, but think they have to have it all figured out before they can really invest. How do you help people move past fear and actually take that first step that can lead them to the journey that you've been on?
Yeah, I think starting small, I think is a big one. If they have their retirement, they are doing those traditional ways of investing for retirement, that's good. But if they want to start to do more, and they should, it's to start small. Understand that where your strengths are, understand what you want to do as far as investing. I get a lot of people who say, I want to do real estate investing. What part of it do you want to do? Because there's a lot, right? There's a lot in real estate that we can get blinded by every day if we don't watch out for ourselves. But understand where your strengths are and lean in on your strengths. People will doubt themselves, and it's because they're not leaning in on their strengths. Like for me, I'm great with talking to people, investors. I have fun with it. My husband's an analytical numbers person. So we understand where our strengths are before we dove in and, okay, this is how we can get it done and be more productive. For an investor who wants to be more passive, it's understanding what it is you want to invest in. There's a lot out there and understanding who you're doing it with. That's going to be huge. I always say to go with your guts and never invest with someone on your first call. I'll get people who are like, we watched your webinar. This is great. We want to invest. I'm like, hold on a second. Let's back up and kind of, I want to know what their goals are in the long term because sometimes they don't even realize they're not sitting down and looking at all of that. When was the last time they sat down and looked at their numbers in real time? They should be evaluating what those numbers are and how much they should be allocating towards different types of investments and risks.
That's awesome. So, can you tell us a little bit more about your nonprofit and how do you balance that while building wealth and creating a global impact?
Sometimes it's not easy, I'm not gonna lie. It Elevate is very much a passion. I've always been very involved with community work within our own communities, volunteering with the kids, things like that. But I grew up with my grandparents always showing me that you always give back. You always give to those less fortunate. And we used to do that a lot in Mexico. So very, very young, I was always involved with it. When I came across our partner, my husband and I came across and met him at different times, it was interesting to us to see his perspective on things. And it wasn't about donations for him. He says donations are great. It was about being able to teach them how to be resilient and empowering them with being able to do more. And especially in countries where they don't have the opportunities the way we do here. So with Elevate, I mean, I can talk about them all day long. We create jobs that will help them grow. We have a virtual assistance program that makes 5 times more than their minimum wage. That's where they start. Within that, it's almost like a not-for-profit because the profit that comes from there goes right back into it. And we fund on the groundwork where we're having our team go to orphanages and doing cleanups at hospitals. We're sponsoring widows who can't afford school for their kids. Our partner has a rice farm that produces and sells rice, but every year we're also taking portions of that and giving it away. We do a lot of on the ground work every month. There's some kind of project going on. And RVAs, what I love the most is they're just as passionate about it as we are. They give back and in the communities. So we also have education online, continuing education online for them. We have internship programs. We have where else am I? We have English classes. One of our VAs teaches English classes. And right now, we're working on a very large project, and it's a university where we're going to start with engineering degrees that will help their economy. There's a lot of challenges in front of them. So there's a lot of growth that they can definitely have, and they don't have the tools and equipment there to help them through these kinds of degrees. A lot of them are taking classes and leaving to get the degrees that they need, or but then they don't get to come back home. And we just tell people we want to create the dream. Everybody thinks they want the American dream, but Americans have it tough. It's not an easy thing to live, and they get here and they realize that. So why not create their Ivorian dream? Why not create in different countries for them? So our VA program, we have now 4 countries that we have employed virtual assistants. So it's an amazing thing to be a part of every day. And I just love the fact that this is not your traditional nonprofit. This is not where you're just giving money and walking away. This is where we're teaching them how to fish so that they can continue to build and grow and be resilient.
I love that. That's truly amazing. That's inspired me a lot, and especially in an industry like ours where we can help a lot of people. I hope people watching this, can actually start from something small and make the impact that you're doing. That's truly beautiful. So what's next for you, Harmony, on a personal level and for your career?
Personal level and career wise, well, I love doing anything that helps others grow and build. And from someone who didn't understand budgeting and all of those things, like if I look back, I wish I would have learned it sooner because I am pushing it and helping my kids learn and the ones around us. So just continuing to do that. I want to learn as much as I can to continue to push that out. Um, Personally, I want to travel more. I want to see more family and friends, things like that. We're going to be going back to Africa next year for our grand opening of the college. And yeah, my goal is to make sure Elevate continues to grow.
Awesome. And to leave our investors watching this with any wise words or a quote, do you have anything in mind?
Do the uncomfortable. It's tough, but let me tell you, once you do it, it's no longer uncomfortable.
Beautiful. Harmony, thank you so much for sharing your journey, insights, and strategies with us today. From taking that first leap into real estate to helping others build wealth and creating meaningful impact, your story is truly inspiring. I know our listeners and our investors are walking away with actionable ideas. And, even when it's scary, this really inspired us all. For anyone looking to learn more or connect with you or explore passive real estate investing opportunities, how can they connect with you?
Definitely on LinkedIn. All of my social media is my first and last name, Harmonie Borden. So easy to find on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, I think even TikTok these days. And that would probably be the best. They can book a call with me right there on my bio.
Awesome. And to everyone watching and listening, thank you for tuning in and be sure to stay connected for more conversations with the nation's top investors and experts right here on Investor One-on-One. Thank you, Harmony.
Thank you so much, Orsapir.